Welcome to the Real Mike Duley podcast. I'm Mike Duley, nationally recognized broker, bringing you real conversations, real strategies, and real insights into today's real estate market. Hey, thank you everyone for joining. We are at the Real Mike Duley podcast and hanging out. I'm so excited about our guest today. Coming all the way, I want to say from Australia, but I'll say Austin. How about that? So I got a good buddy. He's from New Zealand, and I love his accent. But we'll hang in the United States. We'll hang in Texas and Arkansas. We're bordering each other, which is cool. So we have the great Wendy Papasan. Do you want to go ahead? I know I got a cheat sheet of who you are, but do you want to tell our audience some of your great things? When we look through your bio, it's multiple organizations, multiple companies, and multiple fun.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm Mike Duley's number one fan. So there's that. And I run the Papasan Properties Group here with Keller Williams in Austin, Texas, not Australia. And I have a couple other businesses. I run our development company / investment firm called Impact Capital. And we have a handyman remodeling company. And I also am a co-founder of Her Best Life, which helps women leaders.
People always ask me, how do I come up with my names of my companies? So Impact, was it like, this North Star, this dream? Did you have that thought process on some of the names?
Well, Jay and I have done our core values exercise, and that is, Impact is where our core values overlap. So it's big for both of us. So that's why we picked it.
So not like my first corporation. Actually, my Duley Group team is MCE Enterprises, Mike, Cody, Evelyn Enterprises. But I started it before St. Clair came along. So when she gets a little bit older, she's going to be, what the heck? You left me out, But to your point, obviously through a lot of great work.
You can be doing that, right? It could be MCs, I guess.
Or assigned, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But you and Jay have always, and Cody and I have, it's kind of funny. I'm sure you hear this a lot too. It caused some fights sometimes. Like when we first did couples goal setting, and I think the document was kick-ass goal setting. And we first went through it and had it. She's like, I'll give you an example. I had to be a private pilot is one of the things I really wanted to do. I had that on my list. And she goes, first of all, I love you. I'll let you drive the Sprinter van and drive other things, but we're not going to ride in a plane with you. And I was like, let me go ahead and cross that one off.
Well, you know what? That was actually on my list that came up during the couples goal setting retreat as well. And I guess Jay wins an award because he ended up getting me flying lessons for Christmas one year. Yeah, I got up in there. My kids were little. I was like, no, this is not going to work. But maybe now that they're a little bit older, I would be able to stomach it.
Well, I had some sentimental stuff. My dad was a pilot. He flew actually Chinooks in Vietnam. And my mom and him are high school sweethearts. So when they were in high school, which sounds crazy these days, he took my mom up in a Cessna. They did a day like 2 or 3 hours away. It's like kind of like the Notebook movie, The Perfect Thing. So when we were doing goal setting, I said, hey, I want to buy a Florida beach house, which driving the van is about 12 hours. And I was like, honey, how great would it be to have the private plane? So, and I know we're going to talk about a lot of those things today. And I think, and you're around a lot of people. I'm around a lot of people. And sometimes they quickly go to the private plane or to 12 years from now. And I would challenge them, anything they're listening to today, don't do that. The first part you have to do, if you haven't done this yet, I'll give you your first thing. You actually need to get your medical card. That's your first thing to do in private lessons. Well, that only costs like $125. So you're chunking it down and you have steps along the way.
It's true.
I do want to highlight for our listeners too, and I was overlooking this. You guys have helped over 2,300 real estate transactions.
Yeah, we're actually about to hit 2,500. Yeah, you probably have a little bit of old information, but yeah,
it was like
month,
last week. That's how many properties you're selling a week.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
And you're almost up to 900 million. Think about that. How many people you have affected in doing real estate, from, like you said, development to homes to all those things. It is amazing the impact you can make. I'm going to actually see how many times I can say impact because I know that you're in your goals now. But I know I actually listened last week. I went rucking, and Jay's podcast is one of the ones that I listened to. And he talked about your giving strategy. So think about now, and he talked about, I know you guys weren't tracking it. I think he said all the way from the beginning, but that if I read everything about you, I read that at least 9 to 10 times was about your giving strategy and giving back. And I know that's her best life and everything. What is the root of that for you?
I don't know. I've always had a helping personality, and I don't know. I think it's addictive, changing people's lives. There's a certain fun that I get from that. And I have been gifted like a strategic sense, it's like that's my top strength. And so just being able to like get to the core of something. Yeah. And then I just have always loved giving back. Jay and I started tracking time we spent giving, and then we started tracking the money we raised. And then when we were able to, we started tracking the money we actually gave away. And I think we've helped since 2018, we've raised about $4 million for local charities.
That's amazing. And I know he added in there too, when he was talking about also the influence of giving. And I never thought about that. I know many times you've been on my Multiply, KW Cares thing and the stuff that you've done that. We don't think about that until you add that up. That event's raised almost 1.5 million for KW Cares. And people go, to your point, they don't go, oh, I didn't give 1.5 million, but you gave the influence of doing that. And sometimes that's a much bigger impact.
Yeah. Well, I think the world is starved for good leadership right now. And so many of us have the opportunity to be a leadership in our own world, whether it's on our team, on our block, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our towns. And I think, sometimes we can't change the world, but we can change the world around us. And so you can do that by stepping up and being a leader. And I know that that's in your heart too. You and I are very much in alignment as far as that goes. And it's a real gift to be able to do that. And anyone can do it. A lot of times you just have to step up to the plate and raise your hand.
And we know you've been podcasting for a long time. You had an award or a record most recently, right? How many downloads are we at now?
We're at over 1 million.
That is amazing. That is awesome. And, I think there will be some people that listen to this podcast and they go, okay. And I see this a lot. And you probably had this. I would like to know what that trend was. 5 people listened to the first time. It was all your relatives, right? And then what was the number where you were like, oh, we have something here? What was like kind of the momentum? Like how many episodes was that in?
Well, we've been doing it for 5.5 years now. So yeah, I mean, it definitely got momentum. I think that the gift that we got is at family reunion one year for Keller Williams. We got kind of put on stage because Simon Sinek was supposed to show up and speak and he got sick. And so we got his slot. And that helped us build momentum right from the beginning.
We have a lot of mentors that say, be ready with like your one thing. So what can you teach? What can you talk about? Are you ready to go? Because these opportunities might happen. And that would be a good lesson for anyone listening is what is the thing you could teach on? If you're like, hey, you got 30 minutes. All right, let's go. You're ready to go. And you guys went up there and that was life changing.
Yeah. I mean, the big deal was like, oh, what are we going to wear? We're going to be on stage tomorrow.
Well, I want to congratulate you too. What is this strategic too is the colors, your branding. And I think about everything that you do. One of the things was they were asking me questions about the real Mike Duley. And they're like, what kind of colors do you like? Well, for me, Keller Williams is red. I love that. The Razorbacks are red. There's a lot of things that add emotions to me and everything that I'm doing. This bright yellow. And it's funny, whenever we do the growth call, they show 4 or 5 podcasts and then they're saying, okay, here's what's coming out next. Yours immediately, if you look at it, pops over the other ones because of that bright yellow. I think it's not a color generally chosen.
Well, we didn't pick it. It was KWRI, their talent team in marketing. I think it was Caitlin, actually, who's was working there. She's the same person that designed the one thing. So she's a super talented. She's not with KWRI anymore, but she picked that yellow, and I know she had done some research around it. And then when we created our company, Her Best Life, we did that on purpose to kind of align the two brands. So that was definitely on purpose.
Yeah, if anybody listening to the show does not know what Her Best Life is, will you go ahead and kind of give them a rundown, what it is, how to connect, where to connect?
Yeah. Well, and before I do that, just as a side note about that color, when we were in Nashville, there is a historic hotel there that was the site of a very important part in the women's suffrage movement. So Tennessee was the last state to sort of ratify women being able to vote. And the way they added up the votes was with yellow roses. And so we found that out after the fact. And it was a nice kind of happy coincidence.
Super cool. Your Raz was kicking in, right? So
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question you asked me.
I don't remember. It was something brilliant. No, I wanted to ask Her Best Life for our audience, just a little bit about it, where to find them, where to go if they're interested in learning more.
Yeah. So Her Best Life was founded about almost 7 years ago. And it's a really special company because it's a company that was born of true love and friendship from me and 6 of my best friends. And we wanted to bring to others what we had, which was a powerful mastermind experience where we could all grow in our leadership, our health, our wealth, our business, and our thinking bigger. And so we formed Her Best Life. And you can go to herbestlife.com and find out about all the programs and everything that we do there.
On all the social handles, same name too?
Yeah.
And as people are listening and I'm thinking about it, you think about like a real Mike Duley. It's funny, if you want something to work, attempt to get I'm sure there's a social platform that we haven't even thought about it. I actually just joined Substack. I don't know if you're on there or not. I joined that about 2 weeks ago. There's going to be a social platform that we're not even thinking about. Do you guys have a strategy that you're like, okay, we need to make sure we hold that name on that new social platform, or no strategy around that?
I wish we did. No, we're not that coordinated yet. Yeah. It's been kind of a little side hustle that's turned into a real business for us. And I think we have all the big ones,
Well, Gary says it's
we're
right.
not on Substack yet.
Well, after this, we will be, right? So Gary always says, right? He says, it's progress, not perfection. And I think that's the thing that I want the listeners to learn too. If you think about it, look at how great, and to your point, it was like, oh, how awesome they're on stage. If they only knew Simon Sinek, and I think actually I was there. I think they did say he got sick or did something, but still, if you would have thought about it, you're ready to go. COVID, I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if people were like, oh, they were so buttoned up, they were so organized. It's because you were reading, you were learning, you were with your best friends. And I love that you're able to do that.
Yeah, it was really fun.
How are you keeping yourself sharp to be a really good, podcast? I had a mentor say, know a little bit about a lot. And I think that's so true if you go deep in some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, I try to bring things from the outside in. Keller Williams has taught me so much. And this, at a certain amount of time, you're kind of full. You kind of got it all. Not that Gary or Keller Williams has taught me everything. I don't want to say that. That sounds egotistical, but you kind of know a lot of the things. And so it's really getting out and going to other conferences. So I went to a longevity and wealth conference in Park City earlier this year. And I just met some really interesting people, deep dive with different people in a lot of different arenas, talking about different things. So I'm just trying to do more of that. And it's easier for me because I'm an empty nester now.
I have a lot of questions around that, but longevity is funny. I never think about goal setting. When I worked in corporate America, I never talked about I'm going to live to 100 or I want to live to 90. I want to live to 95. I would love to know, and I'm sure our audience would, about the conference. What was a key takeaway you had, or a couple of key takeaways?
Well, it was a longevity and wealth conference. And so on the wealth side, this idea of taking your wealth and the assets that you've created and moving them around to help you live the rest of your life. Because I think we've primarily just collected assets, right? And so now we're at the point where we might take a rental property where we tore it down and we're building 3 properties on it instead. So kind of doing that kind of thing, or just saying like, this rental property we've gotten all the worth that we want out of it, and we want to do something, buy a, second home or something like that. You know what I mean? Like just that concept of kind of trading up almost.
That's great. I was at a KW Wealth where they were talking about that. They said lay out your whole portfolio and kind of look at your bottom 25%. Is it earning you the tax depreciation that you want, the cash flow that you want? And you might flip that. So to your point, you might grab those that actually, in KW Wealth, one of the people took it to an oil and gas fund. So they 1031 the real estate property to a oil and gas fund, which a lot of people are like, oh, you can't do that. Well, some of the times it's knowledge or information. That's what I have loved over my journey is like someone new is doing something, what you just said, a property, maybe that house was 800,000. You tore it down. Could you go maybe some of the money mechanics behind that? I'm pretty interested. I'm sure audience would be in that property that you did, the 3 units.
Yeah. So in Austin now you can put 3 properties on one piece of land. And we have a lot of homes in central Austin, and the land is worth way more than the houses on them. And so we bought this property as a flip in 2006, and it's been a good rental for us. It's paid off now. And Austin all of a sudden said you could build 3 units on there. So we're turning 1,100 square feet into about 5,500 square feet. And we'll go from about $2,600 a month in rent to about $18,000 at rent.
That's awesome. Talk about legacy.
Yeah. And we could move in there if we wanted to. The places will be really nice.
I'm going to back up a little bit. We started forward pacing, but for our audience too, if you look at your first side hustle, tell us a little bit how you first started. I know the story and I forget, I know you all too well, but I want to make sure our audience too kind of goes back to a little bit of the beginning. Will you take them back to the beginning?
Well, I got a lot of side hustles. I don't even think you know this, but my first real estate side hustle was after I quit my job and I was staying home with my kids, is I worked for Outfront magazine. I was a writer. Yeah. So I wrote stories for Outfront and I did that. And then I also worked for a local realtor who was our realtor, Peter Dennison. And I would stuff envelopes for him. So I would do his mailings to his client. I would do his client mailings. So I'd stuff the envelopes, when my kids were napping or whatever. And I've always had a side hustle. I was an editor for many years. Actually, that's how Jay got his job at Keller Williams, because I was working full time and then I was coming home and editing books. And Jay was quote unquote, freelancing. He did not have a job. And I would come home and he did some freelancing gigs, but I got tired of like doing both. And so I came home one day and he was playing video games and I was like, time for a real job. So that's when he got his job at KW.
Fast forward, some of those video game people, I look at it, I read articles on them. They're like, oh, they flipped a video game for $4 billion. It's pretty crazy.
That was Jay. I would love to say that it was, but it wasn't.
Well, like I had a side hustle. I have multiple, like you two. Every day on the way over here to the podcast, somebody was talking to me about another one, and I want to ask you. So for me, for instance, I was like, oh, staging business. That's a no-brainer, slam dunk. But where I was at the time, I had 6 storage units, all this furniture, Sprinter van, who's going to move the stuff? And I realized from my own P&L, it was like $200 profit margin. I already had the listing anyway. It didn't make sense for my time. So I exited out of that business. And I had Gene Rivers say this to me one time. He said, Mike, you need to pick a number. That business needs a net. So my number, for instance, is $250,000 net profit. So if it will not net profit, it has to be a no. Because obviously there's going to continue to be things that put in front of you. So do you have a process or a number for our audience to say, okay, here's what you should build? And I think it depends on where you are in your life and your business. 10 years ago, it would have been different, but now it's like, okay, my time is the hardest thing to hold and control.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely a serial entrepreneur. So I watch you from afar and I'm like, wow, he's got a lot of fingers in a lot of things. For me, the real estate team has always been the core. So that's the operations incubates out of that. And so anything that's ancillary kind of makes sense. And so that's when we started our handyman and remodeling company. And that company does not throw off $250,000 in profit. And I don't really care because it's services our real estate team, and then we have 16 doors. So
sometimes it's fixing a pain that actually could be more than $250,000. It sounds like it's also business development. That was one thing in COVID that I figured out a way to. Whenever a client came to me and said, "Can you help me do my insurance? Can you help me do mortgages or refis?" I was usually like, "No, let me connect you with someone," or whatever it is. And I said during COVID, I always want to figure out a way to say yes. That sounds like that's your yes bucket. So if somebody, it sounds like today, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, well, especially for the rentals. We were paying out handyman full time anyway, so we might as well pay a company that we know, love, and trust. And so it's been good for us, and it is profitable. It's just not that much. So,
well, and if a client now does not know about 3 units being able to be put on one property in Austin, now you actually have all the pieces, and you can educate them and be an educator to provide that lead flow.
We did not a webinar, but we did an in-person seminar about it recently. We had a panel of experts, and I love to do that. Like, my passion has always been investing. That's how I got started in real estate. I was a real estate investor for 5 years before I got my real estate license. And that's actually why I got my real estate license, is to save money on investment properties. My goal, my first year, was to make $15,000, and that's it. So I could buy a rental.
It's funny how times have changed, and now you're like, how do I make that either a week or a month? Your financial thermostat. A young guy that I know, he was our first intern 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago. He's actually working at Kraft Foods now. And that's where I started kind of my first career. And it was funny. I made $29,000 was my salary. And I was excited about it, and you think about it too. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as you know, cost of living and all those things, it's tough to say, okay, I want to stuff money away for the kids for college. What are those pieces? You have to have more income. And I know Jay wrote an article at one time, Hergenrother. I was on a call with Adam and Jay, and he was presenting to some people, and he talked about this happiness meter. People say sometimes you can't be happy with a certain amount of money, but he said there's a lot of research done around that. 75K. And I remember this loud and clear. And I always thought about our staff and our people. And one of the things he said in there is you can put more things in your target basket, which I think resonates with people. Once you hear that, you can donate them more. You can do a little bit of things there, which are more important.
Yeah.
You hit on something. You talked about being an investor for 5 years. Knowing you know what you know today, would you change anything in those first 5 years?
I don't think so. I mean, I became a landlady. Well, actually, the first real estate deal that we did as an investor was Jay was writing The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and we'd never done any investing. So he thought, well, better know what I'm talking about here. And so it was me, Dave Jenks, Jay, and then their research assistant, Heather Russo. And all 3 of them were working full-time at KWI. And I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And so we were all in it, partners, four pieces of the pie. And I ended up doing a lot of the sweat equity because I wasn't working. And we really made some big mistakes with the foundation company, and the plumbing got wrecked. And so all of our profit got eliminated. And we ended up getting $2,000 that we split 4 ways. And I remember just thinking, like, $500. Like, I did all the I planted the whole front yard, but it was a good learning lesson.
Oh, it is. Well, I love, even Gary has his own vulnerability in that book. In the beginning of the book, he talks about buying the condo and then losing out on the condo. I've heard, I go back to Gene Rivers sometimes because he resonates with me a lot. He talked about the red book is how you earn the money. The blue book is how you actually develop the wealth and keep the wealth. And I know that's a lot of things that you've been focused on over the years, for sure.
It's true. I mean, we've had a really nice partnership because Jay's had really great, steady W-2 income. And I I'm very grateful for that. And a lot of people who are investors, they haven't had that. And I've had the ability to kind of do the other stuff that's helped us build the wealth. And some of that money is made has gone towards that. And I've kind of done the work. And then when I got my real estate license, a lot of the money that I was making did go back into real estate. And we just kept our expenses low. You know, when I got into real estate, we decided to continue to live off of one salary, which we'd been doing for 5 years. And it would have been a lot easier not to do that. And that was our choice. And we felt really poor for many years.
But that's a life lesson right there. If people are listening, I think that's important. Sometimes when you get a flip, you make a lot of money, you do something, you're quick to either spend it and a lot of people don't realize one of the things that I didn't necessarily understand or pay attention, because no one teaches you this, when you start making considerable wealth or income, is taxes. So if you're really not strategizing and really planning for those, you can really get hit with that. We see that a lot of agents are rookie of the years and all those people, they've jumped up in income, making 3 or 4x what they've made before in the past from a W-2 role, whatever that is. They're not ready for that. I did want to go into, if people are listening, what are some of the things that you're thinking about? Are you doing some creative things? Are you doing hard money lending? Are you doing, oil and gas? What are the things are staying with Steady Eddie, or what are you looking at?
Yeah. So we've done lots of different kind of fun things. The development is really the thing that I'm focused on right now. And that includes this Three-Plex that we're building here in Austin. That's about, $1.6 million deal. And then I have a development that I'm doing with a partner in California. We're doing a high-end flip there. So that's like a $1.5 million house that we're flipping. And we've invested in some businesses. So we have a good friend that's starting a platform for business brokerages. And we've invested in that. It's called Dealonomy. I'm on the board of advisors for that. And of course, we've got a lot of real estate. We're invested.
Did you go a little deeper into that business? I love it. I'm looking right now at a dumpster business, and it's funny. And I know we've brought several speakers at CEO Summit and other places talking about buying businesses. And one of the ones that I'm looking at is an 88 unit roll-off dumpster business. And I'm like, this is a no-brainer. The people that are in it now are looking to exit. And if people are not doing this today, please write this in your toolkit. One of the first questions I always ask is, would you own or finance the down payment? I ask that 100% of the time. Even if I had $100 million liquid, I would still ask that question, because that way my liquid money, I can use it whatever the way I want. And about 99% of the time they say yes. Usually they say no, because they're thinking that you're saying, can we own or finance the whole thing? And I'm saying, let me walk you through this. I want to own or finance the down payment. Usually it's going to save them on taxes, and it's going to be a better strategy. And they'll have a second mortgage on there, so they'll still have ownership if something goes sideways. Once people explain that part to them, it's a win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our ranch is owner financed. It's the best thing we've ever done. Yeah, so Dealonomy is for business owners, and it's the only online marketplace where qualified business owners can sell their company in a competitive environment with thousands of great buyers. So usually what happens is, if you are a business broker, the listing agent pays the business broker to sell and market their business. And this company has kind of flipped that, in that buyers pay to be a part of this marketplace, part of Dealonomy. And it's a monthly membership. And then what Dealonomy does is it vets the businesses, because you've looked into buying businesses. I mean, most of the time you look at a business and it's full of businesses' personal expenses. There's not a lot of profit. The owner operator is grinding away at 60 hours a week, and it's just not a great business. And so what they've done at Dealonomy is they're vetting the businesses. They've got someone who's looking through the P&Ls and making sure that it's all, a good qualified business.
Well, just if you think about this, it's brilliant. congratulations, because I've heard many mentors talk about this. The number one businesses in the world are membership. What I heard too, and I gravitated to you right away, and you probably have your organization probably has a pro forma on that too. How many more members do we need? What's our waterfall? What does all those pieces look like? Is you look at Netflix, Walmart, Amazon, all the biggest companies in the world are all membership based. So one of the things that I'm thinking about in my next 10-year strategy is how to get more membership based companies. So the roll-off dumpster, as an example, has a component of that, because what builders are doing is, if you were a large building organization, you might actually have your own roll-off dumpsters, but most of them like, oh no, that's a line item I just want done. They're actually paying that monthly. So if you're doing a development, which I know you're going to do the 3 units, that might sit there for 12 months. Well, great. You're actually writing a check to me on a monthly basis, even though we don't think about that like a monthly membership company, but there's so many of those that are in a different peripheral from a line item, because from a builder developer, that's a line item in their builder trend or whatever software they're using.
It's smart.
Well, I know. I was saying, I was getting excited. I was getting like geeked out a little bit too. So you're going to be able to, a buyer, if you will. And is it a website or is it an app?
Yeah, it's a website. Yeah, you can go to, it's Dealonomy, Dealonomy.
Very cool. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check it out.
And businesses, people, just another life lesson. You're hitting me with so many of them is your amount of your website. If someone's starting new or starting a business too, you need to think about your character length. Even though we still have this AI and chat functionality, sometimes if they're either driving, listening to the radio, looking at billboards, all those things, they need to have that memorization. So I think that's really important in developing businesses. So that's smart.
Well, thank you. I had nothing to do with the name, but I appreciate that. I'm just on the board. I'm just an investor and I'm on the board. So, it's actually been a really great experience for me, because you asked earlier, like how you keep sharp, and I'm one of the few people on the board who's not a business broker. And so I bring a very different experience. And what's great is because I don't know, I'll ask a question out of the blue and literally everyone will turn and look at me and they'll be like, wow, that's so smart, because they're all in their business broker box. And I'm over here thinking like a different kind of business owner.
Mitch has said that from Keller Capital. I've heard him many times. He asks really good, and it's not that they're like, he says, his words, not my words. He says, it's not that I'm seeming that I'm dumb or uneducated. Obviously, we want to see a lot of businesses fail. So he goes a little bit deeper to ask, how do I make $1? How does the widget work? How does some of that functionality? To your point, we've seen a lot of people that we know and trust in other businesses where businesses fail. I've had a couple of them, different ones that I wish I would have asked better questions in the beginning. How do we turn a profit? When you're thinking about buying a business, what is your vision? And if they go, my vision for the next 6 months, to me, that's not a vision. I actually just launched for my Keller Williams office. I did our 2030 vision. And I think there is a lot of operators in the brokerage space that aren't thinking about that. Well, you know what? Real estate's going to be done a lot different in 2030 than it is today. How is AI being used? How is one of the things we're talking about? I'm pretty proud of this, and I think you would like this a lot, is having everyone in our office have 100% home ownership. Well, the next question is, well, how are people going to get down payments, or how are they going to have savings? We're actually creating a fund from some of those that are having blessing and doing well, and we'll be the hard money lender for the person. Some of them could be grants. Some of them could be even that person making a return on their money to be able to pay that forward. And I did not come up with that idea. I came up with the idea of the 100% ownership. But I love what you just said. Someone asked a really good question. Well, if somebody is maybe not making the salary they need to, or having a hard time saving, how are we going to help them have home ownership? And I just thought that was brilliant that someone said, well, we're going to lend it to them together. We're going to be a tribe.
Love that.
Super cool. Well, if you're thinking about the next, as we, we're going to keep rolling for a little bit, if that's fun. If you think about the next 5 to 10 years, do you have some things out there that you're excited about?
I think for me, it's really getting back into the real estate development. And that's how I started. And then when I started my real estate team, as you know, it's extremely distracting. It's been a wonderful distraction, a 16-year distraction. And so it's for fun. It's fun getting back into all that and doing more of that and kind of upgrading. We want to buy a commercial property. We have one, but we want to buy another industrial property. And then, our kids are empty nesters. So, we are good. We don't have to make any more money. We're financially free. And so just deploying our money in ways that make an impact.
The commercial real estate space, I feel like, is even the easiest to own or finance a down payment. Oh man, I was able to buy my building in Bentonville that way, which is really fun because it is a win-win-win. The people got their number, they got full price. Then I was able to get an opportunity, and then we renovated part of the building, and then actually take them out whenever we did that renovation, which is pretty cool. I had on here.
Well, and I just was going to say, we have a ranch that's 300 acres, and we want to sell that, 1031 it, and turn it into something closer and smaller so that we can do more retreat type things. Jay and I would get a lot out of that.
Very cool. And I know you've experienced. So I love you said this.
Cody to come and co-host.
Let's do it. But I was going to say too, and you think about real estate investing, and you kind of said this in the very beginning, but I want to make sure our audience hears it too. Just because too, you had a ranch, for instance, you had a great use of it, you enjoyed it, you had it at a certain time in your life. Now your life is shifting to a different spot. Now you're going to be able to use that appreciation. Yeah, I think you said you had an owner finance there too. So it's a win-win-win where you got great use out of it. Now your life is changing, and you're going to be able to 1031 that, something that's going to be even a stronger use case for you. I think sometimes people think in real estate, I have to hold something forever. Now, I think there is times for that, but I think you always need to look at your piece of real estate. It's not only are the numbers making sense, am I getting value out of it, right? From a fun and a care.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. And I think for so long, it's just, for us, it's been buy and hold. And in Austin, the rental properties don't cash flow that great. And so we have a lot of equity in our properties. And for us, it's not really about the cash flow. It's really about, okay, what can we do to kind of deploy that equity that we've been blessed to receive our last 20 years. And whether that's helping charities or buying a place where we could, do retreats and pour into people, or just have fun with our family. It's fun to be able to do that.
Yeah. And if people are listening too, they might see you or me or other people today, and they go, oh, I want to have what they have. And you just dropped something that I love over 20 years. Yeah. So it is, I always say this to people, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Now yeah.
And we both worked our butts off. Let's be real.
Well, I tell people this is a crane operator. Sometimes there is things that can be a sprint. Maybe, okay, our goal for our organization is 33 under contracts this month. Well, that can be a little bit of a sprint, but there's other things that are a marathon that are helping us go where we wanted to go. I had a couple more questions. It's going to actually, Valentine's Day will be 10 years. Okay. So it's actually not that long. I launched Yankee Candle at Walmart before I got into real estate. So I had an entrepreneur bug, but I think and thank you to people like you and other people that are out there. I mean, I can name millions of them. Ben, Kenny, go through the list that they paved the way for me. So when I started Valentine's Day 2016, I was a really good listener, a really good learner. I went to 13 different events my first year. So Kristen Cole, she had that expansion summit out in Arizona. I think that year there was a million things that were happening, and all I did is just gobble up information. And I've always done that. So sometimes when people see me, they don't realize, and I want to challenge anyone to do this, I'm learning and listening and watching. Now I'm still failing like crazy, but I don't spend months and months on my failure. I go, okay, what would I do differently? How would I do it differently? Let me think about some things. And then it's usually 24 hours. Okay, let's go do something different. And I'm always, and I think you said this too, we always need to be looking at businesses, investments. When someone says, hey, I have an idea, I always want to say, yes, I want to look at it, no matter what it is. One of the ones I'll plant a seed, and I don't know if you've ever looked at this, drop yards. Have you ever heard about a drop yard before? They're brilliant. So say you need 2 acres piece of property. All it is gravel and a fence, and you can put anything in there. You could put boats, RV, tractor trailers, all that. You'll have some security around there. So there's no person manning it. So there's no W-2 salaries, if
Are
you
you
will.
from Arkansas or something?
I know. Obviously, we have one of the biggest trucking companies in the world here. But if you look at it, people have stuff. They just do, you know? Exactly. So what it does to me, and here's why I like this as an asset class. Maybe your financial, maybe as far as you only had a certain piece and you could acquire the dirt, maybe you owner finance the dirt, but then you paid for the fence and you had it ready. If it was a really good piece of property, and this is what I heard you say too. So fast forward 10 years, 20 years. I forgot where I heard this, but grab any main street and go 7 miles from Main Street. So that's going to be your future Walmart, your future Target, your future Costco. So say I had this piece of property and it started as a drop yard. Well, I'm building my real estate investment portfolio as a mutual fund. So some things, and you talked about you're going to have a $14,000 increase from going from 1 unit to 3. Well, that was part of your mutual fund, but this would be a long-term strategy where my dirt, someone might go, oh, that's a future Walgreens. Well, maybe what if I actually had a triple net and I actually did a land lease? Now I own the Walgreens. Then I can 1031. So I'm thinking a little bit further and thinking about the game as a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, I live in a city of 2.5 million people. So 7 miles from Main Street is it's a pretty expensive drop yard.
Well, we might have 17 or 70. You know, and I know, is there certain cities like Dripping Springs, I know, and other ones that are like, you're like, oh, that's far away. But someone in Austin, how do you close the gap, right? How do you pick up the pieces? Eventually, all that's going to tie together.
Of course. Yeah. No, of course. I hear you. Yeah. There's lots of land between Austin and San Antonio. And that's all going to be, at some point, that's going to be like that's like going to be DC, Baltimore. You know, that'll all be one kind of contiguous industry and subdivisions and all that kind of stuff. And so there's tons and tons of land there. So yeah, makes sense.
As we're kind of wrapping up.
You sold me. Yeah, you sold me on a drop
See,
yard.
I
I'm
like
Googling
it.
it. I'm Googling it.
You have a lot of things moving on, you know, a lot of business, a lot of things. What kind of systems or tools or people really help make that happen?
Well, I have a lot of great people in my life for sure. I have, number one, I have basically my VP of operations. She runs operations for our commercial real estate team, our residential real estate team, and our handyman and development company. So she kind of does all that. And then I have an executive assistant, and she helps me with a lot of the other stuff. She handles all the rentals. She actually handles the development, both developments. And then just, you know, she wrapping my Christmas presents. She's helping with that kind of stuff too. She's incredible that way. She runs the gamut. And yeah, just getting really clear about what my lane is, what I'm good at, and then not feeling like I have to micromanage everything else in my world. You know, if it's 85% done, I'm good with it. And
yep, what are they saying? And buy back your time.
Yeah, 100%. You gotta buy back your time.
Yep, 80% done by someone else is 100% done.
Yes, 100%. So I'm good at buying back my time. I have worked a lot. I'm a hard worker, and I still am. And I wake up almost every day and I look at my calendar and I think, I love my life.
If people wanted to learn more about you or follow you or send referrals your way or send 3-unit developments your way, how do they find out more about you or where to find you?
I'm on Instagram. So Wendy Papasan, or you can check out Her Best Life at herbestlife.com, or you can shoot me an email. I'm very easy to find. I'm the only Wendy Papasan in the world.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Maybe that should be a future podcast name.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that your fun fact? Was it 2 truths and a lie?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Papasan is a very unusual name. And as far as I know, there's only one Wendy Papasan. So,
well, I know you're about to go have fun with your husband and have. Is it date night? Is it staying in? What are we doing?
Actually, tonight we're going to the Keller Williams Christmas party is tonight. So we'll be down at the Austin Trail of Lights with our friends over at KWI.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this is all brought to you by our friends at Mutual Omaha Mortgage. So we want to thank them for sponsoring us and hanging out. We truly appreciate you coming on, The Real Mike Duley. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. And I'm looking, hopefully I'm able to see you sooner than this, but I know I'll see you February 20th in Atlanta. I'm excited about Atlanta.
I know. I can't wait.
Well, good. We'll give your husband a hug and a kiss and a high five. And thank you for everything you do for me and our company. Have
Thanks
a great
for
weekend.
having me. Yeah. Bye, Mike.
Thanks for listening to The Real Mike Duley podcast. Subscribe, share, stay real. I'm Mike Duley. Until next time.